So, yay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So, Julia's saying she's from New York, so it's warm there for Christmas. Okay, cool, because it's pretty darn cold here. And wet, as usual. So, Denise, you're going to kind of lead this evening, are you? Or
I am. Okay, so let's just kick off then. So this is, I think, probably the 7th or 8th of the blabs that we've been running together as a group on a Monday evening. And what we thought we would talk about today is some of the marketing trends for 2016. And so we're all going to, the three of us are each going to share what we see as being the key marketing trends for this coming year. But we'd also love for you to join in the conversation too. And so there's the facility to hop onto the hot seat and contribute to the discussion and the conversation there. And also, if you want to ask any questions of us, then what you do is you just type \Q into the chat and then just put whatever your question is. And it will highlight that you've asked a question for us. And when there's the right moment, we'll jump in and answer your question there for you as well. And please do interact in the chat box and on the right hand side of your screen as well. So it's really great to get some banter and some interaction going amongst people on the blab. So yeah, just kind of post your comments there. And then the other thing to say is that little pair of hands that you'll see on the bottom right hand corner of our profiles is where you're able to give the love to us. I'm not quite entirely sure how it works, other than I do believe that if you get a lot of love, then Blab will start to tell people in their email marketing about the blabs that we're running. So hopefully we won't have what happened last week, which was where the love button got stuck for somebody and she just couldn't stop sharing the love. So that was really quite entertaining, and so yeah, hopefully that won't happen again. I see Lynn is here as well, so welcome to you. You've been on some of our blabs as well. So let's just get straight into it with the marketing trends that we think are going to be important ones for 2016. So who wants to kick off? And I'll introduce you in just a tick when you've just told me who wants to kick off.
Well, I don't mind kicking off. I suppose I'm going to
say who you are first of all.
Oh yeah, sorry, yeah.
I'm so out of in Christmas mode or something. That quite full on with it today. So what I should have said is to introduce Emma and Christina. So Emma is in the bottom left-hand corner, and Emma is a sales and marketing expert. She lives in rural Ireland, in a sort of small village where it seems to rain an awful lot of the time, and there seem to be a lot of internet connectivity problems there as well. So our mission is to bring Emma into the online world as much as possible. So Emma can tell you a bit about her background in just a tick. And then we've also got Christina here. Christina lives down in just outside Bristol, in another kind of fairly rural part of the world. And Christina is our digital marketing expert, and her credentials for that are that she has 3 e-commerce websites, and she's been running one of those since, I guess, when they first started back in 2001. And she also has a digital marketing agency. And what is unique about Christina is that she because she has her own e-commerce businesses, she tests out everything on her e-commerce businesses before she tests out ideas on her clients. And so that's quite unusual, because most of the digital marketing people that I've come across in the online space don't actually have any direct experience of running digital marketing businesses themselves. And then I'm Denise William, and I live in London in the UK, and so I'm a business strategist or business consultant, and my background is that I have about 25 years in business, 8 of those as a CEO, and I decided, I suppose about 3 years or so ago, that there had to be more to life than that, and so decided to set up my own business. So, and then the three of us met through an online program that we were all part of earlier in the year, and really got sort of talking and built up a relationship and got collaborating. And so I've started working together, and one of the things that we'll tell you about a bit later on is a mastermind group that we are going to be running as well. So Emma, shall I hand over to you to talk about what you see as being the key marketing trends for 2016, and if there's anything else about your background that you just want to fill in as well?
Sure, thank you, Denise. So hi everyone. As Denise has kindly introduced me there, I'll just give a quick further intro. So I'm obviously Emma from Ireland, from the south, from the rural part of Ireland, as Denise has said, from literally a small village with 100 people. So often people get amazed by that, because in comparison to New York and different places, it's quite small, obviously. So basically, I have worked in business for the last 20 years in different industries, such as the agricultural industry, the equine industry, in particular in the retail industry, and a lot in sales as well. I also have a degree in business, and I suppose I've always had a really, really big interest in marketing. So I also have a master's in marketing as well. And I suppose one of the biggest things that I'm interested in specifically is in consumer behavior, and what drives people to buy products or indeed services from people. So that's kind of one of my main interests that I focus on. So I suppose obviously tonight we're talking about marketing trends for 2016. So we've all had to think about this, and, trying to, I suppose, give our thoughts of what's going to be important in 2016. And one of the reminders I wanted to make for people was to focus on relationship marketing. It's an oldie in one way, but equally it's incredibly important. And I think, a lot of businesses, be they in the online space or indeed traditional businesses, are reaffirming the fact that relationship marketing is extremely important. You can call it CRM or relationship marketing, either or. They're basically the same thing, but essentially what it means is that, as business owners, that we're constantly building out those relationships that we have with our customers. And indeed, research has shown time and time again that it is, it's much more difficult to get a new customer than it is to retain somebody that's with you already. So relationship marketing really comes into its own in that regard. And I just want to re-emphasize that for people in terms of, to focus not just on new customer acquisition, but equally focus on the customers that you have already. Are you giving them enough value? Can you give them something more? Are there other services you can provide? So just to really flesh out what sort of relationship marketing that you have in place right now, because I think it's super important. Again, it's around a long time. When I was doing my master's, one of the metaphors they had was, marriage. So again, it is relationship marketing. So they often focused on the fact that it's kind of like a marriage. You get out of it what you put into it. So it's incredibly important that you're constantly building out these relationships, and reaching out to people, and, even sometimes personalized messages as well that can really resonate with customers if you're, you yourself are reaching out to them and saying, hey, how are you getting on? Is there anything we can do? Especially when they least expect it. So again, if you can all have a look at that and see what can you do with your relationship marketing. Is there sufficient have you sufficient methods in place now to reach out to your current customers? Or are there extra things that you can do that can, help to reestablish you as the go-to person in your industry, and equally to remind people of, who you are and what you do, and that feel-good factor as well in terms of, reaching out to people and giving value. You can do little things like even just sending birthday cards if you have their birthday. You can do, just simple things. Sometimes simple can work best, oftentimes. So just as a reminder, other things to look at then are just in terms of personalized marketing. That seems to be a new trend that's becoming really in vogue. If you looked at Coca-Cola in particular, and some of the bigger brands are having a look at personalizing marketing. In other words, that obviously with Coca-Cola they had the Coca-Cola bottles, and you could have your name on it and all that sort of stuff. So in particular, millennials, if your target market are millennials, they are really going for that type of marketing. So I suppose really for you as business owners to have a look and see, can you personalize what you're doing? Is there something that you can offer to people that really personalizes that whole experience? Everyone is looking for that experience, so that customer experience. So if you can personalize that in some regards, they can really, customers really appreciate that. And equally, it can be used as branding for you as well. So maybe a personalized t-shirt, or, personalized pens or coffee cups, or, start thinking, in that regard. And that can be really important as well. Another trend perhaps to look at is, wearable. Wearable technology is really coming to the forefront. You've all probably seen, Apple watches, the Apple glasses coming through, and there'll be a lot more coming through with different brands as well. And the stats are already showing that up to 2016, there was a 28% uptake of wearable technology, which is really amazing considering how recent it has come to the marketplace. So that's something to keep your eye out for, I think, in terms of, what's coming down the line. If you're in the product, if you're selling products, is there something that you can have that you can adapt that can be wearable? Equally, can you give gifts, to your customers in terms of wearable technology? Obviously, they can be quite expensive right now because they're relatively new to the marketplace. But just to start getting, the cogs thinking, what can you be doing going forward that can help people? And I suppose really, what I would say to you is to start thinking ahead of the curve. What can you look at? What can you do? So yeah, I don't know what you ladies would think of those three sort of tips, if you like, for the new year, but that's something I've kind of had a look through different aspects of different marketing, and they kind of just stand out as, I suppose, the relationship marketing is there all the time, but just to re-emphasize it, and then the wearable technology. And what would you think about that, Denise and Christina, or would you agree or disagree?
You're making me want to buy an Apple Watch even more. I'm resisting. So if any suppliers are watching this and would like to send me one.
Me too, I have to tell you, because it's really on my list as well. So I saw somebody had put a picture on Facebook the other day and I was like, oh, I really want one. So yeah, and I think it's kind of the newbie, isn't it, on 10? So people are really looking to get something kind of early adopters and stuff. But I think going down the line, there's a lot of research to illustrate that wearable technology is really where it's at down the line. I don't know, because you're definitely a tech geek, dare I say, and Christina, so I'm sure you definitely have your eye on some products, do you?
I do, but in some ways I think there might be a little disadvantage. I was actually looking yesterday, getting suckered in by sort of Amazon lightning deals, the dreaded New Year's resolutions of I must drink less wine and do more exercise. And they've got the various sort of health wearables on offer at the moment. And from a sort of human and a health point of view, I think they're great. I think as for marketers, it's making life even harder because, we've already had to really battle. If we were having this blab 12 months ago, I would have been talking a lot about mobile. And to me, mobile isn't a 2016 trend because mobile is just here. It's kind of gone beyond the trend point to being, sort of ubiquitous. But what it means now is we're competing a lot more. We used to have our customers, we were perhaps fighting for their attention online around news stories that they were reading, or Facebook, or heaven forbid they're actually meant to be doing some work while they're sat at their desk, and we'd perhaps be trying to communicate with them by email or by kind of online adverts, whether those be banner adverts or sort of text-based. And now people are consuming email massively on mobile. So very quickly, they dive in, dive out. You can kind of swipe left to delete, and getting through the inbox very quickly. And then I was looking at some of the watches that are coming out now. So I think it was the Fitbit. They're now bringing the sort of, even though in fact, it's not even a watch. So it is purely a sort of health gadget, but it is bringing in some of the sort of smartwatch elements. So you'd have things like call notifications, and I'm sure it won't be long before they've also got. Oh, I think Emma's disappeared.
Can you hear me?
Yes, perfect.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, aren't you lucky?
So, sorry, what were you?
No, I was just asking, in terms of the health wearables, kind of what are they?
The other two.
Can you? Yeah. Okay. What do they do, or can you hear me?
Well, in that they are, they're very much there to be sort of monitoring, the typical things like heart rate, number of daily steps, etc. But they're then sort of expanding that out so that they also tell you the time. They're showing notifications for text messages, etc. And I have no idea how to pronounce your username, so I'm going to attempt this, but I'll apologise in advance. Covey is saying he's thinking about social networks and marketing through them, which is totally true. And if you're if you've got a brand that's heavily related to health, so perhaps you're someone who produces kind of fitness equipment, then targeting people who've got these devices will work really well. Whether they'll actually start showing adverts on them, I don't know. But my sort of as a marketer who at the moment isn't really operating in the health sector, is that it's a disadvantage. So with my e-commerce head on, I'm always trying to sell people things, and if they're getting a text message, an email about some amazing festive promotions I'm doing, and it comes through onto their watch while they're taking a sort of 5-kilometer run, they're not going to stop mid-run and buy some jewelry. So it's getting the attention of our customers far more challenging. And whether it's not just smartwatches, it's mobile phones, it's smart TVs, it's across things like Xbox Live, all the places that, as Emma mentioned, millennials are consuming content so many different places and ways. It just makes it more challenging as a marketer. And I think having things that are highly relevant, and she mentioned personalization, are key to sort of break through the noise of it. So I think that, to me, is potentially the biggest challenge of 2016. Just trying to kind of cut through all the noise for what's out there. So that's my thoughts on it. I don't know what you think, Denise, about the points that Emma made.
Well, as the complete non-tech person in the group, I really don't get the idea about wearable technology at all. So it's something that I'd have to really think about, because it's just so not my thing. So
we'll bring you over to the dark side, Denise.
So I can't really ever see an Apple Watch ever making it onto my Christmas list. But maybe I'll have a different thought about that going forward. So it's I don't know. It's just not my thing. So, but what I would like to know is whether any of you have tapped into the whole wearable technology thing, and whether that's something that you think you'll be pursuing, perhaps in terms of your business and products that you offer to your customers. Did you have any other tips that you wanted to share, Emma, in terms of what you see as being the trends for 2016?
Yeah, just one or two things as well. I mean, there's obviously loads of stuff really, but won't go too much into detail. I'll be talking all night. But it seems for 2016, there's going to be better search in general among social media. So we'll say on Facebook or, a lot of the different social media, and that's going to have huge impact on content marketing. I won't go too much into it in that we're going to do another blab actually on content marketing. But I think just a heads up to everybody just listening right now in terms of how important content marketing is going forward. If you're not sure what it is, it's really where you're creating content. You're essentially becoming a publisher for all the world, in that you're creating blogs, you might be doing podcasts, you might be doing something like this, where essentially you are creating or the creator of different forms of content. And just it seems next year there is going to be more of an emphasis on content marketing. In other words, content you create yourself. And the fact that some of the social media are, platforms are going to put an emphasis on search means that your content will be more easily found. So again, I don't want to go into it too much because we will be focusing on that on another blab, but just kind of heads up about it. The other thing to look at, I think, as well is in terms of your customer's experience. There's a huge, we'll say the last 2 or 3 years in particularly we'll say amongst tourists, like anyone that tour operators or anyone in the tourist industry, in particular, what they're offering is experiences as opposed to holidays. And I think just to look at that, take it a step further in terms of your business, be it a service or indeed a product, what's the whole customer experience when they come into your shop, if you have a shop, if they come into your office, if you're online, what is that whole experience going to be like? Because people have moved on slightly in that they are looking for that experience as opposed to just buying, say, products or services. So just to have a look at that whole outline of experiences and just to, I suppose, map out what does your customer actually experience when they come to you. Can you, increase the quality of that, or is there any steps that you can take that can make that experience better? Can you make it out of this world that they're talking about you and that's what you want, where people are referring you because the customer experience is so amazing? So just have a look at that as well. I suppose I'm always going to go back to understanding your customers because that's what I love. But just to really, again, the crux of any sort of marketing you're doing or any business that you have is looking at your customers and really understanding what drives them to buy products and services. So can you tap into that? Is it, do you have a product or service that will actually serve certain people, but they're not aware of it because they don't know that you exist perhaps? So again, just understand your customers, who they are, what drives them to buy your products and services. And I suppose the biggest thing is where are they hanging out? How can you reach them in terms of your marketing message and communications? They're the main ones really. And I suppose interestingly enough, again, this is kind of just main marketing trends, but Snapchat seems to be something that seems to really kind of, I start to see coming to the fore in terms of being included as a platform going forward into 2016 and probably more so into 2017. But I see a lot of the early adopters really starting to look and turn to Snapchat as a means of reaching particular markets. And if you're looking at millennials in particular, or anybody under 20, if they are your target market, I think you really, really need to start looking at Snapchat and how you can tap into that whole platform as a means of marketing your message. And I suppose really a lot of this is about being smart. It's about identifying who's your customers and identifying, what experience can you give them, where are they hanging out, what can you do to reach them and to maximize that whole experience. So I've probably been talking too much, so maybe I'd like to hand it over maybe to Christina or Denise or whoever would like to take up their points and what they would advise for marketing trends for 2016. But just to recap for anybody that just come in there, I was talking about wearable technology. I think really going forward for 2016 and particularly on into 2017 and beyond, wearable technology will be where it's at. I think we all need to have a look at that, and including myself there. It is very new to the table, but is there any way of kind of tapping into that whole experience for customers? If you've got a product, can you tap into that? Just what I was talking about there a second ago was better search in content marketing. So that will have an impact. So there'll be better search in general on social media. That will have a huge impact on your content being found or more likely to be found. So the more content you have, the better. And I suppose really how do you flesh that out in terms of blogs and podcasts or whatever content it is that you create? I just mentioned Snapchat as being really, really kind of coming to the fore as kind of the newer type of social media that's going to be very important. And again, not so much obviously for the older generation. So if you've got an older demographic, they're your target market, probably they're not on Snapchat. But if you have a younger demographic, that's, to start looking at it. And personalization was something I mentioned there earlier. Again, if you're later coming into the conversation in terms of, think of Coca-Cola, they personalized their you know, their cans and their bottles there recently, so you could have your name on it. And just again, can you personalize any of the products or services that you've got? People are really buying into that sort of stuff. So just to have a look at that. And I suppose at the start then I was talking about relationship marketing. So that's really about building out your relationships, you know, making sure that your customers remember you by having a really good customer experience. So just to focus on that. So sorry, now going on again. So maybe Christine or Denise, would you like to take up your tips for 2016?
I just
Yeah, perfect. I'll let Denise go next, but I just wanted to flag up a couple of the questions that are in the chat in case you ladies haven't seen them. Dia is asking about content marketing as relates to video. So I'm going to say hold that thought for 5 minutes, because one of the things I'm going to talk about is video, and I'll kind of cover that in a not a massive amount of detail, but it's a great question, and I'll make sure I deal with it there. And then I'm going to hand over Catherine Switch's question. As everyone's involved in content marketing these days, how on earth do you stand out to the other two ladies? And then let Denise share her insight.
That actually links very much to one of the marketing trends that I wanted to talk about, and picks up on something that Emma was saying as well, that I think one of the big trends for 2016 is going to be about producing really, really high quality content on your blogs, and that the quality of your writing, if you've got a written blog, is going to be so important. So previously, I think the sort of general view was that blogs should be relatively short and snappy, whereas the view and the trend over the last year or so has been that blogs should be longer, probably 1,000 words or more, that they should be really, really content rich. And that's really what Google likes and rewards. The days of keyword stuffing are well over, and what Google wants to see is really, really well written content that has been properly researched, that's been well written, and that's been well edited as well. And there was, when I was just doing research in readiness for this blab, one of the things that I came across was that the Content Marketing Institute, which is quite a sort of well-known body in the content marketing world, did a report very recently, and what it discovered was that only 19% of marketers are going to prioritize becoming stronger writers in the next year, but the view is very much that it's the quality of your writing that is going to make you stand out. And I think that really, in a sense, is the answer to your question there, Catherine, about how do you stand out? And I think you stand out by the quality of the content that you put out there. It's absolutely true that there is the market is massively crowded, and so you've got a serious job of work to do to be visible. But for people to want to keep coming back to the content that you've put together, then it really has to be of a very high quality. So I think that's the simple answer to the question. And in terms of Delia's question about whether or not content marketing is going to be more focused on video and blogs and so on, I'm of the view that it's going to continue to be across all of the different mediums. I don't know what Christina or Emma's view would be on that, but I think that's because people have very much different preferences. So my personal preference is for anything written, and so I would much rather read a blog than I would listen to, say, a podcast or watch a video, because I read so fast that I can get through the content very, very quickly, so it's a much lower time commitment for me. to read something than it would be to listen to a vlog or podcast or whatever it is. So I think that all of the mediums are going to be important. And then I just want to, before I bring in Christina, I'm not quite sure if we've lost Emma here because she seems to be writing away in the chat but not in the seat, is to talk about the other trend that I think that there will be for 2016, and that's very much linked to content marketing strategy as well, which is that there's going to be a move towards really adding value for your audience and less selling, and that's something that I for sure would like to see at least a serious reduction to, because I don't know about everybody here, but I'm probably like a number of you, I signed up to a lot of different newsletters, so people that I particularly want to follow because their work is of interest to me, other people that I want to follow because it's for market research purposes basically, and to see what competition's doing. And one of the things that I've found really amazing is how people you've signed up to their free download, their lead magnet, and they're straight into selling at you, and you haven't actually even established whether the person has any content, any expertise, or any real value that you want to know about, and they're selling at you. The other thing that really took me by surprise was over Christmas, I was thinking about what to put out in my newsletter to my community, and in terms of sort of like a Christmas message. And so I had a look at the different newsletters that come in from me just to see what was being said. And a number of people who I know really purport to have a strong relationship with their communities, and I was really quite shocked to see that some of them were selling on Christmas Eve, but there was no no kind of Christmas message, no appreciation of their audience. And I suppose I don't know if I'm just a bit old-fashioned or something, but I thought that was a bit really a bit unseemly. And then there were others who there was just absolute radio silence from as well. And so there was only actually one person of all the people that I follow who actually sent out something that was just saying, thanks everybody for following, for following me and supporting my work. Hope you have a great Christmas. So that's so when I've read the was doing some research for this and looking at the different trends, I was really quite pleased to see that there's a view that adding value is going to be really important, and selling is going to have to take a back seat. So I don't know what you guys think about that.
I think it's one of these really dangerous sort of phrases. And again, I'll preface this by I think it very much depends on what what exactly your business is. Again, going, there's relationship building, there's content marketing, but it is fundamentally you're not building the same relationship perhaps to sell someone a £25 piece of jewelry as perhaps to sell them perhaps either a £50,000 car or a very expensive sort of business service package. It's very much I think this is one of the phrases I seem to come up with on every single blab, that it really depends on exactly what kind of business you're in. And the danger is that you guys can kind of tune in and hear us talk, and if you're kind of taking our quotes out of context, they can be really dangerous, and that's why having a sort of depth. Just know what your business is, and that, you know, the kind of advice. So we're talking in really, really general terms tonight in terms of trends. This isn't a go off tomorrow morning and write your to-do list for your business and shove every single one of these things on as things you must implement in the next 30 days. So I also know that sometimes for me, content marketing can be comfort zone. And that I far prefer to be doing something like this than getting on the phone and closing a sale. And Emma, I dug up that video to show in one of my Facebook groups.
Oh, did you? It's good.
Selling. Yeah. So I think it's that really, you know, if you're kind of looking at ratios, and there'll be some people here, and this is me doing like pop psychology on people's usernames on Blab. So there are some people here who will be guilty of, for every 10 messages they send, whether that be tweets, emails, Instagram posts, Snapchat, whatever you're doing, you'll be in kind of hardcore closer mode, and you'll be sell. You guys need to ramp it down. And there'll be, you know, the other kind of extremity where there'll be people who are spending hours every week putting great content out into the ether, but never actually selling. So I'm being a little bit not disagreeing here, but I'm saying it's kind of your mileage may vary, and it's really important to know with any sort of content exactly what your goals are. I mean, for me, actually, one of my New Year's resolutions is to be much more focused and structured with content, because it's gone slightly out of control in 2015. I think I've been doing a bit of end of year sort of review, and there's been some great content put out there, but not always in enough of a sort of systemized way that, when I say it leads directly to sales, I'm not saying that I'm going to be email number 1, email number 2, email number 3, give me your Visa card now sort of thing. But there needs to be a little bit more of kind of circling people back around. And so actually, probably for me, it's kind of amping up the selling while producing more content. And that way there's a better return on investment from all of it. So the aim is to be producing 2, 3, maybe even 4 times as much content, but with a better sales funnel sat behind it. So there's me kind of zigging and zagging back and forth a bit on that topic. But what do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've all got to, kind of like what you're saying, the content marketing in particular, you know, and in terms of selling, I think, you know, you've got to decide what's right for you and what's right for your business. But I think you've got to take a step back. So for me, probably like Christina, it's I have to amp it up a bit. So you've got to get that happy medium where you're not, you want to give value to your customers and to your clients. You want to help them, you know, all that sort of thing. But equally, there's obviously, we're all in business, so there is an element of selling, right? So I suppose it's the trick, isn't it? Try not to overdo it, but at the same time, you do have to ask for the sale. But to be conscious of the fact that, you know, at certain times of the year, or like Denise is saying, maybe it's a bit overkill to be constantly sending emails, maybe on Christmas Eve or indeed on Christmas Day. But I think you've got to be sensible about it too. So it's kind of like midway there where, you know, you can't overdo it, but at the same time, you can't undersell yourself either. So it's that happy medium that I think all of us have to sit back and think what works for us, but equally not just works for us, but, you know, what works for our customers and how best can we connect with them. And that's going back to relationship marketing too, because the other side of the coin is if you don't put yourself forward, people may need your product or service, but if you're not asking for the sale, if there isn't that call to action, they may go to somebody else that maybe cannot provide them with the exact you know, offering that you have. So just remember that as well. So I think it's just that happy medium, I feel, in any case. So yeah.
So Christina, what do you see as being the key trends for 2016 now?
Well, for me, it's all about video, and you know, we're on live video right now, and Delia had asked the question about sort of 10 minutes ago about this content in terms of video. I'm going to kind of go slightly off piste, but sometimes for me, I always find with clients, if you explain some of the kind of reasons behind stuff, it makes all these kind of changes in the sort of internet landscape a little bit easier to understand. So we've got at the moment going on in the world of tech kind of battle of the titans. So you've got Google versus Facebook, and they are, you know, they're dueling it out to be, the number one online advertiser. On the surface, people think of Google as very much about search. In reality, their revenue all comes from advertising. Facebook, again, Facebook's amping up, as Emma's always referred to be about kind of social media, but they're really working hard on their search. So you've got, as far as Google goes, Google owns YouTube. So YouTube at the moment is the largest kind of platform for video on the web right now. The sort of about 12 months ago, I think Facebook realized that they were sending huge amounts of traffic to YouTube because everyone would come onto Facebook and share cool YouTube videos, whether that be something of genuine interest because it was perhaps a business related thing or a TED talk, or it's just kind of cute cats. But either way, Facebook was sending massive amounts of traffic onto YouTube, and YouTube were making money off that traffic, and YouTube is owned by Google. So Facebook has made video a real priority for them, but certainly in 2015, it's only going to strengthen in 2016. For us as marketers, the little carrot they're giving us in terms of why we should be prioritizing Facebook video is at the moment it's the kind of the easiest way to get engagement and reach on the Facebook platform for free. So what am I talking about? Well, you can literally just go and upload a video. So the same way you'd upload it onto YouTube, you can upload it directly into Facebook, the same way as you'd pop photos onto a status update, etc. And the sort of benefit from a marketing point of view is that more people will see that video than they would if you were doing a photo or a text-based update. And it's all sort of extending on from that because Facebook aren't stupid. There's a reason why they're one of the largest companies in the world, and they've seen things coming, such as Periscope and Blab. So Blab was founded by the guy who set up Bebo. So this is going back a little bit. So actually probably a tiny bit old for Bebo. It was kind of probably what the slightly younger kids at school were messing around on. But there's the kind of people who were behind Blab, which we're all sat on this evening, have got a strong pedigree in social networking, and they are not stupid either. And Facebook has seen that just as they're getting people into the habit of uploading straight onto the Facebook platform with their video, suddenly there's a lot of attention getting pulled elsewhere. Periscope has really seen a lot of growth this year. I don't know if anyone here on Periscope, if you are, pop something in the chat box because my New Year's resolution is to really play a lot more on Periscope. So I'm looking for some good people to follow. So pop your Periscope username in the chat box and I will give you a Blab shout out. So yeah, it's a live video streaming. Facebook is jumping on this. Some of you may have seen that at the moment, people who have got verified public pages on there are able to live stream directly through Facebook. And this is incredibly powerful because the one sort of slight disadvantage of Blab at the moment is it's yet another platform. And when I talk to Blab and I explain it to people and they kind of get Blab and they like the sound of it, but there's a little bit of a barrier to entry in that they've got to set up a Blab account, which means they've got to have a Twitter account, and I see certainly in my audience quite a few people are kind of getting lost on the way to Blab, whereas they're all already on Facebook. So Facebook live streaming is available right now to publicly verified pages, but it is coming to everyone in the first quarter of 2016. But this kind of throws back a little bit to what the other two ladies have been talking about, and kind of how to stand out, and also what I was saying, how to kind of cut through the crap. And this is where video can be really powerful because it's not, it's so, as humans, we are, we're kind of designed. I'm going to tread on Emma's toes here and go on to psychology of the human beings. But my background, my original degree was vet science, so I very much look at humans or animals. And if you look at how other animals relate, so much of it is to do with facial impressions, body language, and there's huge amounts that we read from that. And that's something that video, especially live video in particular, to me, it's the best way to directly communicate with someone, especially if you're not an incredibly talented writer. I would give myself a sort of 5 or 6 out of 10 as a writer. I'm not amazing at it. So for me, I would always prefer video. And so that's all I'm probably going to talk about video tonight, but just to say, if you're not using it, you really should be jumping on it. And there's no reason why it has to be just for the kind of service-based folk. We had someone on, we did a kind of a special edition blab last week dedicated totally to e-commerce. And we had a guy join us who was selling jam jars online, the tune of over £1 million a year. So that's about $1.4 million for the US folk. And he's been using Blab to do jam making tuition online, which is massively creative. Certainly in my own e-commerce businesses, we've been actually, to be honest, really, really crap in the last quarter about video. We've been using video for Facebook advertising and getting good results with that, but we've been really slack about using video on our websites. And so sort of January is big video month, and of putting lots and lots of product information. So where you've got, for example, jewelry, so I'm sat here wearing a piece, I feel now like I'm in QVC, and you give a description and you say this is a 16 to 18 inch chain. Well, you know, who on earth knows what that means unless you're in the trade and used to all the different chain lengths. Whereas a photo is good, but in some ways a video is even better because you can see exactly how something sits. You can show different aspects of a product. You can show if you're using something that's perhaps less decorative and more. One of the sites that we're launching next quarter is to do with leather care. So there'll be a lot of sort of how to clean different sorts of leather products, and video is the perfect medium for that. What I would say, my final thing before I jump off video, is that you really need to repurpose. So we had a great question from Mr. Wonderful. So we're talking about the psychology of Blab usernames. That's a great name. What about visual content? I would say absolutely. And I think what you really need to do, it's a little bit what I referred to earlier, is using content in a very systematic way. So if I'm making a video, I will also be publishing a transcript of it, because people want to people consume in massively different ways. So Denise was saying now that she doesn't really like podcasts, and I'm the opposite because I love podcasts. And to me, the one thing I dislike about video is the time it takes to sit down and watch and consume it. So I'm a phenomenally fast reader, so I can rip through a book very quickly. Podcasts, I listen. I've got horses, so my day normally starts in the stables, sorting them out with breakfast in bed, and then the dreaded mucking out. So I normally always have an iPhone in my back pocket and listen to some sort of educational podcast every single morning. And that's another way. So if I'm producing a bit of video content, the MP3 file will also be available either as a podcast or a direct download. There'll be transcripts. There'll be some really attractive visual content. And so you say art or illustration or an infographic, something that relates to it that'll be from Pinterest that is also drawing people back to my video. So at which point some of you are probably thinking, oh my God, this is going to take absolutely hours. Possibly. But I think that the time is like the other ladies been saying, good content is essential, and if you're going to the time of making it in the first place, then why not make the very most of it? So that's we've got here the bit saying I'm very much liking the YouTube speed up option. That's a great idea, because on podcasts I quite often listen to people on a sort of 1.5 times. Which can make actually the American accents sound really funny. Some people get very squeaky voices. But I didn't actually realise that you can do that on YouTube. Well, thank you very much. That's my tip of the night, because you've kind of saved me some kind of hours and hours of kind of YouTube watching over the next few weeks. So unless anyone's got any questions specifically about video, I've got one more thing to mention as my sort of marketing trend. And again, it's something that is, to me, totally and utterly essential part of your toolkit for pretty much any business. It's not particularly new, but I'm still totally amazed about the amount of businesses I talk to who aren't doing anything with it. So what am I talking about? I'm talking about retargeting advertising. So we've had a few questions about the visibility of how do you get your content seen, etc. And it can be really, really difficult to, you've done all that work of getting people onto your site in the first place, but then they've kind of been on, read your blog post, looked at whatever it is you're selling and not purchased at that point, and just kind of disappear off onto their merry way. So what do we do next? Well, the kind of next thing you need to do is, is retarget them so that you can spend a lot of time building that relationship, but letting the kind of computers do the work for you. So as Ian kind of Denise has said, that I'm very much the kind of geek of the group here, but I'm also inherently quite lazy. If I can get a computer to do something so I can spend more time riding my horses, I'm all for it. And retargeting advertising is a way to legally stalk your customers around the web. So Denise, I'm going to use Denise as a great example here, because hers is a business that she's spending on a lot of time producing great blog content. So if you've not been to denisewillier.com, you should go and read her stuff. But at that point, at the moment, Denise is not stalking you to her full potential. So, because what might happen is you go and read her article and you think, gosh, okay, that woman's great. You know, she knows what she's talking about, and you think it's interesting, but then you sort of go off. And what that would do, the retargeting would allow her to follow you around the web and show you more content, you know, so she can keep on showing her expertise, just as she is this evening. But in a sort of hands-off way that doesn't require her to be sat here on a bank holiday Monday and giving live advice. And retargeting allows you to really reinforce your message. It allows you to build a brand, and it allows you ultimately to sell more. Certainly in e-commerce, it's becoming a pretty essential part of the toolkit. It's getting harder and harder to get people to sell on the sort of first contact, as you'd expect, to be honest. And retargeting, absolutely massive. If you're not doing it, you are leaving money on the table. In fact, probably a lot of money on the table. And I've really not got time to talk about the kind of details of retargeting. If anyone's got any specific questions, just kind of pop them in the comment box below. But I'd say, yeah, put it, you know, more I said there that, you know, kind of taking the kind of prescriptions of chunks and applying them to your business. I really struggle to think of a business actually that wouldn't benefit from kind of retargeting. So if you're doing any sort of kind of proactive marketing at all, it's only going to benefit. If anyone doesn't think their business would benefit from it, I'd love you to type it in the comments or come on live, because I'm, you know, genuinely interested to know. I can just see as well that we've got a question here from the bit. So let me go and dive over onto that.
We've got two questions. One of them is about video and whether or not it's worth spending money on professional video shoot given how expensive it is. And I guess my answer would be that it really depends on what your business is and what it is that you are trying to promote and sell, and also about your brand. So in my industry, which is the business coaching industry, I don't think there's a problem about having kind of fairly homespun videos, and some of the big names in my world, that's what they do. They shoot video very much off the cuff, and it's viewed as kind of being more real and more authentic. And actually, an example that I have of somebody I follow is Robin Sharma, and all of his videos were shot, you know, either perhaps at a location that he was visiting, from a hotel room when he was doing a speaking gig or whatever. And then he started to do much more polished, glossy videos that had clearly had a high level of production. And I don't know whether partly it was to do with me not liking the change in what he was doing, so whether there was a little bit of an adjustment there, but I actually just preferred his real video. Yeah, we've got you live, Janger. We'll bring you on in a minute. We've also got somebody else who wants to join in as well, because we also had another question here about whether Facebook Live is going to be a Periscope killer or not.
Good question.
Which is a great question. I would put, without sort of any knowledge about what Facebook and Periscope are up to strategy-wise, my guess would be that Facebook has such huge muscle that I can't really see how it's not going to dominate. Whether it's going to kill Periscope or not, I don't know, but I can't really see how it's not going to dominate, given that it's such a massive platform. So what do you think, Christina and Emma, about that question? And we've got BitK here as well, who I think wants to join in the conversation, but I don't know how to allow, I can't see how to allow him in.
Hang on.
Well, Denise is handing down.
Why. Yeah.
Oh, perfect. So my thoughts on Periscope versus Facebook. If I was Periscope, I'd be worried. And the main, the sort of, to me, the two big differences between the two is actually the notification side of it. So Periscope, it drives me absolutely mad because their kind of notification system is so aggressive that your phone is beeping sort of every 5 to 10 minutes with people going live. And it's very, it's really sort of intrusive to the extent that I have just disabled all notifications. So unless I happen to be browsing in Periscope, or perhaps someone I know is doing a particular, a broadcast that they've sort of announced the time of, I'm really disengaged actually with Periscope at the moment. It's something that I want to spend more time in January. Partly it's an experiment to see, is it a useful place to be hanging out? Whereas Facebook, I'm in and out of Facebook a lot, and partly because Facebook has suckered me in like it has however many billion people to spend far too much time. But I'm also in there as a digital marketer a lot of the time, content on pages, advertising, etc. But the notification side is far more subtle. I've only got Facebook notifications turned on when I'm in actually inside Facebook, but I'm actually there quite a lot of the time. So if they're popping up, it's far more, to me, I suppose I'm better trained to Facebook notifications. The fact they're mixed in at the moment with stuff that is, sort of a personal nature, I think that's also psychologically a bit of a different feel. I'm getting notifications because there's photos, lots of kind of Christmas stuff getting posted at the moment from family all around the world. I'm getting, perhaps some messages flying back and forth between me and friends, sorting out New Year's Eve arrangements. There's kind of comments on pages and groups I'm in, and it's all stuff that is genuinely kind of Facebook at the moment is quite kind of tightly curated for me, for people that I'm interested in and people that I have a very close personal relationship with. So when I get at the moment, someone who I really like to follow on social media is Gary Vaynerchuk. He's a really famous social media marketer. He's doing sort of Facebook Live video as he does on pretty much every platform. So if I happen to be sort of on Facebook browsing through kind of Christmas photos and I get a notification, it's really easy to go up and spend 5 minutes watching Gary V versus having my phone sat on my desk when I'm trying to get some work done and it suddenly starts chirping away from Periscope. And also it's just one less platform. People are fundamentally quite lazy. It's one less password to remember. For us tech geeks that sounds ridiculous, but I think for the rest of the world out there, kind of password problems are a big barrier. You've got to remember how to pull up the app, you've got to remember to log in, you've got to get in there. And it's not as seamless as sort of a feeling as Facebook Live. So I don't think Periscope's going away anytime soon. But I certainly think Facebook, and it's interesting how quickly a lot of the big sort of social media celebs are jumping and spending a lot more time on Facebook Live than they are on Periscope. And going back to my analogy about humans, kind of where the herd's going is where the cash is. And so if I had to choose and someone said to me, you can only have one or the other for 2016, Facebook Live or Periscope, I would totally.
I think there's also an interesting question here about the where Blab fits into this as well, because it's obviously still in beta test form. And so, it's quite a different proposition to Periscope in the sense that, you can have, it's a bit like a kind of, in a sense, a news show or something like that. And so one of the things that I've noticed is that some of the kind of key people in my industry, so people like Kim Gast, if you are interested in the social media marketing space, and Michael Hyatt, who his business is all really about intentional leadership. Both of them are spending more time on Blab, and Michael in particular made a strategic decision to come off of Periscope and to focus his attentions on to Blab, and that was following conversations that he had had with the CEO of Blab around the direction in which they wanted to take it and some of the new features that they intended to be adding to it as well. So yeah, so I think it's going to be really interesting to see how Blab evolves as a platform, and whether it overtakes Periscope in terms of popularity.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with what you're saying in terms of Periscope. I've actually deleted it, would you believe? Yesterday or today, I deleted the app from my iPhone and from my iPad, purely because of the notifications, the constant stream of them. And to be honest, I haven't been really using it. I've kind of switched to Blab personally, and I do see that live, Facebook Live, when I get it eventually, that's where I'll be at. I think, you know, Periscope, I feel, will go forward more into mainstream. So it'll be like people generally using it as opposed to maybe a marketing tool necessarily. Not to say that you can't use it as a marketing tool, but I think, you know, your general consumer will be using it more so for their everyday life. I feel by next summer, that's kind of where it'll be at. And again, that'll put another emphasis for other markets that context. So perhaps it'll be the new live Facebook in some ways. But as Christina says, you have to physically go to Periscope, whereas if you're already on Facebook, you can see people that are on live and you're quite likely to pop in and have a look, or, you know, post a question or engage or whatnot. So I kind of feel Facebook Live will work better as a marketer in any case, as opposed to Periscope. I feel it may die off to a certain extent, maybe not completely, but they're going to have to rethink it slightly, I think, in terms of competing with Facebook Live going forward. Personally, I prefer Blab. I think it's kind of the next part of doing webinars. I mean, I've been doing webinars for a while. What I really love about Blab is the fact that you can have a conversation, people can jump in, jump out, you know, it's more engaging, it's more interactive. It's also, you know, it's what you nearly feel like you're a talk show host in the sense of, well, not quite, but just the sense of you don't know what questions people are going to ask. Therefore, it's a little bit scary in that regard. So I don't think it's going to be everybody's cup of tea. Because in particular, if you're feeling shy perhaps, or even if you're not totally au fait with your topic, you know, you can get caught out pretty quickly by people asking you some tricky questions and whatnot. So I think not everyone will go for it, but I feel there's some terrific conversations going on here. And personally, I'm really enjoying it and liking it. So I don't know what people think in the chat. But yeah, I really like it. Yeah, so any other questions there, or do you ladies want
Yeah,
to?
there's one I've kind of pinned up, and we also there was a really interesting question in the discussion thread. Someone had mentioned something about it being really dangerous to be building your business on live streaming. If you'd like to come on live, I'd really like to chat more about that, but I can't scroll back far enough to see who it was. So just while hopefully that person is kind of adding themselves or raising their hand, and we've got another question from the bit about influencer marketing, which is something none of us have actually really mentioned as the 2016 predictions. Again, it's a massive. I managed to completely horrify actually the girls in the office. We quite often have a sort of Friday pop quiz. And I say if they get the question right, I'll buy them lunch. So it's always trivia to do with marketing. And it was, how much would it cost you to have a promoted Instagram post by, now which one, let me get this right. The Jenner that is so Kim Kardashian's little sister that's a supermodel, Kendall Jenner, that's it, who has 50 million Instagram followers. And if you would like a tweet pop, sorry, not a tweet, a promoted Instagram post it was an insane amount of money. I now actually can't remember this is a really crap example to be giving. So this is the danger with live, guys. But it was enough to horrify everyone. So there's no doubt, the reason why she's paid that much money is because she's massively influential with her fan base on things like Instagram. So how do you choose who to partner with? I would say, like any sort of digital, you need to test. You're unlikely to kind of find the perfect person straight away. Don't be scared to go through 2 or 3. It's something that I've been working on heavily in the last quarter, to be getting a lot of content based with bloggers, who are also then by default quite influential on the other social media sites to promote e-commerce websites. And for me, it's looking at people with a big reach. So that would be in terms of how influential are they, how many followers have they got, etc. But also, are they appropriate for the brand? So as Denise mentioned, so I've got 3 e-commerce websites at the moment, and they're all, in fact, some of the product crossover between the 3 of them is reasonably similar, but all 3 have got a very different target audience. And so I might have a blogger who is perfect to be promoting one website, but would be the really wrong fit for one of the others, even selling identical products, if that makes any sense, because the overall tone and brand of the sites are so different. So for me, it's kind of gut feel. And then, so how big's their reach? Do I think they're an appropriate fit for my brand? And then the kind of third is, we literally just dip our toes in. Starting, a really small piece of work together, typically but might be a giveaway. Sometimes it's just supplying products for photo shoots, etc. And see, how easy are they to work with? Because to me, it's not always about straight away what are the initial sales. Are they someone that I enjoy interacting with? Are they a pain in the ass to deal with? In which case they get struck off the list quite quickly. They respond to emails. Do they kind of put in the web credits as they should, etc.? Is there enough attention to detail? So to me, it's a kind of looking at the 3 things and then just kind of feeling your way in. There's some people who we've had there's sort of a kind of 3, 4, 5 month period of building a working relationship, and that's then going to get much more formalised in the first quarter of 2016 into them making them official affiliates, so that they can then promote and earn income directly, and it's actually far more at their discretion, and they'll be running advertising. And be kind of promoting content in a much more sort of purely transactional way. They're confident to do that because they found that they know that their audience likes our stuff. Our audience likes them. It's a nice fit. It's mutually beneficial, not just on a financial sense. We enjoy working with each other. We enjoy featuring each other's products. And so I just kind of inch your way in slowly. If you've got absolutely no idea at all who to target, it is a case of spending time on Instagram, on Facebook, just kind of combing through. This is the kind of dirty side of digital marketing, where as much as you can get computers to do the hard work for you, sometimes it means spending hours using Excel spreadsheets and just kind of trolling through to try and find, literally paying. I quite like, on Instagram, literally just looking on hashtags and seeing, okay, what kind of grabs you and what good accounts are out there and hunting them out. And the kind of ideal is if you can find people who are on the rise, then you can kind of benefit from each other. If you go out to an established superstar, so Denise has mentioned, I'm very much talking here about Instagram and in terms of e-commerce. Denise mentioned earlier Michael Hyatt. I would imagine if you want Michael Hyatt to endorse something you are offering, you're going to have to write him a large check. If you can find someone,
and he would.
Oh. Or he wouldn't do it.
He would. He basically won't endorse anybody that he doesn't have an established relationship with and doesn't have absolute confidence in what they're doing. So I think in my space, in the business coaching space, to get access to some of the kind of big name coaches, it's really that you've built out a personal relationship with them, and that might be because you've been part of, say, a mastermind group that they've been running, or some kind of smaller program where they've got to really know you, because a lot of these people get requests all the time, and from people to support and endorse their work, and they're not going to do it, basically. One of the things that I've just seen starting to happen in other types of business space is brand partnerships. So the same kind of idea, I suppose, around influencer marketing, which is that certainly one of the businesses that I've been working with, she has just got her first, what she would call a brand ambassador. And it's really an influencer in the beauty space, because that's the industry that she's in. And so somebody who's got I suppose is a star is on the rise, but at a very engaged and substantial social media following, particularly actually on Instagram, Facebook, and not so much Twitter. And so they've done come to an arrangement where they exchange services in exchange for her sharing on social media and sort of endorsing products or recommending a service that she's had. And so that's getting the word out to that person's particular followers. And and then at the sort of higher levels of the really big companies, back to what Christina said about people paying to endorse. So one of my absolute favourite brands is Pandora. And over here in the UK, they've got somebody called Tess Daly, who is presenter on Strictly Come Dancing, and is kind of like everybody's kind of favourite girl next door. And so they've got her to be their brand ambassador, and clearly they pay her to do that. And in exchange for that, she wears their jewellery and she tweets about them and makes recommendations and so on. So, but she has a very, very high level of social capital, which is why Pandora have selected her.
It's
questions just that have come through the chat or.
Yeah, I've just asked, does anybody else questions? That was kind of the main one, I think. Hang on, let me just scroll back up. Okay.
Just while I was looking, when you're talking about Tess Daly, and I'd say that the kind of, well, certainly it's been a trend throughout, 2014, 2015, and I think it's only going to get stronger, is that while kind of traditionally sort of influencers were people who were already sort of celebrities or were traditionally sports stars. So through my digital agency, we work with a number of professional riders, including Olympians. They've always earned part of their income from endorsing brands, whether that be something that's very specific to the industry, up to Longines watches. Rolex watches would be some of the major sponsors. But that was taking people who were already famous for something. Whether that be because someone like Tess Daly was as a TV presenter, or you'd have someone like Andy Murray, who'd be a tennis player. We're now in the sort of era of the sort of social media superstar. And we've got vloggers. So, if you talk to, if you perhaps actually, it'd be interesting. I'm gonna test this out tomorrow, and I will report back on next week's blab. I'm gonna ask a whole load of 11-year-olds about Tess Daly versus some of the big YouTube vloggers like Zoella, and where this kind of brand recognition is kind of coming, because sort of consumption of television amongst the sort of under 15s is getting lower and lower. So whereas before people paid huge amounts of money, you've got David Beckham endorsing whiskey, you've got Nicole Kidman, the kind of face of Chanel No. 5 and Omega watches and that sort of thing. Now it's very much, it's sort of fragmenting, and the social media superstars are getting massively influential. And the fashion industry has been really interesting, because you sort of 10 years ago, anyone here who's watched the film Devil Wears Prada, which is sort of very loosely based on Anna Wintour, who's the kind of legendary editor of American Vogue. So you had fashion shows which were like the ultimate hierarchy of print media. So if you're editor of American Vogue, you get, kind of front row seat #1. If you are a huge pop star, you're also front row, etc. It was very much traditional media and celebs. And now in the UK, you'd have someone like Sasha Wilkins, which is the blog called LibertyLondonGirl.com. And if you've not looked at it, it's a really interesting case study in sort of influencer marketing, because she was a fashion journalist, and I'm sure she won't be offended by me saying that she was never a kind of one of the big hitters in the fashion industry when she worked as a print journalist, and yet now she'd be considered probably in the top 10 most influential people in fashion. Certainly here in the UK, I would say in America she'd be also considered influential. She's now got her own cookbook. There's a big piece about her in one of the main newspapers here in the UK, so it's sort of being interviewed. So she has become a celeb through her blog and has tremendous power. When she writes about something in a blog post, there is an instant spike in sales. And it may be now that she is not, I wouldn't say she's not more powerful than Anna Wintour, but she would certainly, if you put her up against perhaps the editor of Red magazine, say here in the UK, it's very interesting to see who's considered more influential in the fashion industry. So finding those people, and then we say, if you now want to go and approach, actually for the Americans, who are another really interesting one. I don't know, have either of you two ladies come across the Pioneer Woman? Is anyone in the chat a Pioneer Woman fan?
No.
So they're shaking away at me. So the Pioneer Woman was is an American lady who kind of escaped a small town to go off to university, came back, fell in love with a cowboy, and lives this kind of ranching life, and has blogged about it for a long time. She's a very talented amateur photographer, and her blog was one of the first big sort of power blogs in America amongst the sort of female blogging community. So she now has her own Food Network TV show. She has got a number of cookbooks. I'm not sure which chain. It might have been Walmart or certainly one of the, or maybe Target, but she's now got an entire cookware range, and is massively influential. So if you were sort of in with Ree Drummond 5 years ago, I'm sure there was perhaps some kind of contrast to be done, and she would promote you because there was some sort of mutually beneficial. Now it's cold hard cash to get featured on the Pioneer Woman blog, and bear in mind the kind of traffic there is there. It's an expensive place to advertise. So those are a couple of examples. So I said once so I'll let the other ladies chat, and I'll go and type those two in. Quite different. One is an English kind of fashion editor. The other is an American rancher. But both incredibly powerful. And you might be quite surprised if you looked at their blogs initially, because they're very deliberately laid back. So we had a question earlier on today about whether you needed to spend a lot of money on having a very glossy video production. Both these ladies, well, actually the Pioneer Woman has had a big website upgrade lately, and it is now a very slick, polished site. Liberty London Girl is a pretty basic WordPress theme. So it's not necessarily about the presentation, it's very much authentic content. And the kind of one thing as well that I've not mentioned at all about influencers, and certainly that I found sort of over the last month or so of collaborating closely with these two, is the power of your network to reach out to influencers. And kind of Emma and I were chatting away. So one of the things that I've got launching in the new year is a podcast that's dedicated to e-commerce. Emma is friendly with the founder of Stripe. So whereas I use Stripe as a payment sort of method, it's not something that necessarily, I have no more access to the founders of Stripe than the other kind of hundreds of thousands, if not millions of companies that use it. Whereas I'm going to shamelessly twist her arm in public right now. So,
they haven't got back to me yet, I have to say. I have reached out, but shamefully they haven't got back yet. So I'm watch this space. They will get back hopefully at some point. But yeah, I think there's some terrific points there you're making, Christina. Interestingly enough, I was reading an advertising book there about a month ago. I can't think of the name, but it's really, oh gosh. Anyway, it's a guy that's written about advertising really, really big in the advertising industry in New York. And he was actually saying in advertising, as in TV advertising, not to use somebody that's very famous, because sometimes what was happening on TV was people were remembering the celebrity and not the product or service. So while the ad, might have, looked really good and everybody thought was fantastic, the sales didn't necessarily come through. So I suppose that's a bit of an FYI. I think generally speaking, in the social world, it works quite differently. Our man Into, I'm not sure exactly your name there, you're watching, and you asked a question earlier there that perhaps influential marketing might relate to paid social, and that they're just doing some reading on this. Now, that's an interesting one. I was on a webinar there a while back, and this lady had identified some people on Instagram that were influencers, and then approached them to pay them to support her or to advocate her products and services. And that worked really well. And she did this for two reasons. First of all, she hated doing webinars. Second of all, she wasn't sure how to do Facebook ads. So she figured if she could do it on Instagram, where she had a large following in any case, that this might be something to look at. So I think you've got to be quite smart. As Christina says, you've got to do a little bit of research, reach out to people and simply ask. You can't just sit there and wait. Also, to be aware, as she's saying, there's many bloggers out there that actually are huge influencers, and it might not be obvious to the naked eye when you're reading through their stuff unless you're following them significantly. The other side of that is I know quite a number of people in the fashion industry that send objects to some of their items to various bloggers, but actually they haven't built up a relationship in advance. And what's happening is they're giving out them because the blogger hasn't sent the items back. And sometimes they can be worth quite a lot of money. But I suppose the first thing is you've got to ask the person, do they want to receive it in the first place? And second of all, have some sort of a conversation around the fact that maybe it's a high value item, and even if it's not, are they going to send it back, or are they just going to write a review? So I suppose there's plenty of opportunity there, but also to be a little bit circumspect in terms of not just randomly sending out products, or getting into bed, so to speak, with people that maybe you should not in terms of your business. Like, who are they aligned with? What do they stand for? Do they stand for the same values as you in your business? So I think that's important to understand as well. As our man says, not to assume, and just that we need to do, you need to do a bit of research into, what's your aim, what's your objective, will this work? Reach out to other people, ask other people in marketing, has this worked for them before? And equally be very aware of whoever you are asking to advocate your product or service, to make sure their values and whatnot are aligned with yours. Okay, so do we have any other questions or anything else that we need to answer? I'm just looking there.
I think Christina had something that she wanted to come in with there.
Oh, yes. Okay, yeah.
Well, I suppose it's just picking back very much that everything we've talked about tonight in terms of sort of predictions, and no matter how sort of much I'm sort of getting my geek on and talking about kind of Facebook versus Periscope and everything like that, whatever it is we're doing, whether it be social networks, whether it be influencer marketing, whether it's content marketing, it's all fundamentally comes down to people. And for me, that there's a danger in getting very caught up in, I suppose for me, especially online. And there's all these amazing new tools, and you can get a little bit sort of shiny object syndrome and jumping around. And if any of you were here sort of half an hour ago, you would have heard me talking about the danger of taking sort of advice verbatim and applying it to your business without understanding the context that it sits in, and how it fits into your sort of wider business strategy. So it's sort of in the context of that, in terms of kind of powerful people networks and smart application for 2016 trends, I'm going to kind of hand you guys over to Denise, who's going to mention a little bit about something we're
as if we would.
I'm just trying to reply here to Mycroft Holmes here, who's making a comment about accents. So I'm guessing that you mean our British accents. So Emma has got her Irish accent on, and I've got my best BBC English Thank Gary.
Why BBC now? Are you not Sky, perhaps, or I don't know?
BBC received, yeah, absolutely received pronunciation there, and likewise, Christina. So I can get a lot posher than this if I want to. So yeah, so I think what Christina was there talking about is about the power of of our network. And one of my observations working with a number of businesses is that they have often really neglected their network to in preference to pursuing digital marketing strategies, which are sometimes not the primary way in which they're going to get business. And so this is something that we have been talking a lot about between ourselves, and I suppose kind of working out, trying to come up with what we see as being a solution to that as well. And so I'm hoping that one of you have got the link to put up on Blab here for me whilst I'm just talking to you about it. Brilliant. Yeah, so what we've decided to do is to team up and set up our own mastermind group. And so we've called it the Winners Enclosure because Emma and Christina in particular are absolutely horse mad. Emma with racing and Christina with dressage. And I would have been, if I hadn't been sent to elocution lessons instead of being able to go horse riding, which is what I really wanted to do. That's why I speak like I do, and I'm not quite as horse mad as Emma and Christina. And so we've put together a program that is really around more advanced business building and marketing strategies, because that's a real gap that we've seen in the marketplace, that there are a lot of courses and online programs and so on catering to people who are much more in a startup space, very much focused around marketing tactics, I would say, even more than marketing strategies. And so we've put together something that we think will fill that gap, and also because of the power for the mastermind for me is very much in the accountability that you get. So I was actually just writing earlier on today a blog post that was my review of 2015. And I was looking back at the review that I wrote at the end of 2014 and reflecting on why I had such particularly good results in 2014 for myself in my business. And I really put that down to that I was in a mastermind group myself during 2014, and that we met on a monthly basis, and that what that meant was I always showed up having at least hit my goals, if not having exceeded my goals. And so what happened over the months that I was in the group was that I then really started to get momentum on my side, and my business took off actually much more quickly as a result of it, because I started my business at the beginning of 2014. And so it was really the accountability that I had in that group, and also the fact that there was just no way that I was ever going to turn up to any of the meetings without having done exactly what I said I would. That really helped me to drive my business forward in 2014. And I haven't had that myself in 2015. I've been part of other groups, but never a mastermind like that. So that's sort of really a little bit by way of my personal experience, and why I think they are so incredibly valuable. So we've put together a curriculum for it. And so the link that Christina has posted up there for you is basically will take you straight through so that you can get a download of the curriculum and see what it's all about. It also gives you a bit of background on us and where we're coming from. So can you just post that again in the chat box again, just for me, Christina? That'd be really, really great. Sure. And so that's basically the way in which you can find out a bit more about it and whether or not it's something that you might be interested in having a conversation about.
A couple of people are asking about. Yeah, a couple of people are asking about the blog post you're referring to. So I've popped that link up as well. So you can see sort of 3 or 4 back. To Denise's blog where she's talking her annual business review. So if you're curious and you prefer written content to video, head on over.
So yeah, anything that you wanted to say about that, Emma and Christina?
Yeah, I mean, sorry, I'll let you go, Christina. Sorry.
Yeah, well, I suppose I'd just reiterate that I find it massively useful. Some people are surprised because Emma and I are both marketers, and in some ways you'd think that we were almost kind of competition, or there's then some sort of professional that you can't go and ask someone else who does a similar thing to you because it somehow, I think sometimes it's an ego thing, and also are you showing sort of lack of expertise, blah, blah, blah. But I would say that I've benefited massively from working with these 2 ladies. The kind of core skills they bring, it's kind of as Denise mentioned right at the beginning. So my first e-commerce business has been up and running since 2001. So we'll be 15 years in business in 2016. And for me personally, I've spent a lot of time and money this year learning. I was talking to Delia in the chat earlier, so I've flown across the Atlantic twice. I've been over in Dublin. In fact, I just seem to have been all over the place this year. For someone who says that she doesn't like doing that much travel with work, it's been a bit mad, but in a good way. And certainly invested thousands of pounds in my own education. But kind of the benefit of that has been having a sounding board, these 2 very wise ladies that who aren't scared to turn around and say that something's great, but equally when it's crap, and just that it's perhaps not necessarily the best sort of thing. And the danger of what Emma and I do is great marketing, and the problems with great marketing is that it brings in loads of sales, which sounds like a really positive thing, but my God, it's been really painful this year because it's caused staff drama, it's caused logistics drama, certainly growing pains. And this is where someone like Denise, her and I have got such different backgrounds, kind of if you wrote it down on paper, we shouldn't get on at all. Our backgrounds, our politics, just everything is so different. But I so kind of value her counsel on a huge amount of things, and they're definitely my kind of secret weapons. So part of me actually doesn't want to share them with the world because they'll have less time to help me. But I'm trying to be a little bit less selfish in 2016, and I'd say that there's that real danger of staying very entrenched in your own industry or business or community. And to work with people from different countries and different sectors, and even though kind of Denise is, she would never kind of put marketer as her kind of number 1 thing on her CV, but in terms of sort of kind of laser perception on kind of cutting through the crap down to the kind of core message of something, so I think it's kind of, I feel extraordinarily lucky to have been able to work with them. I'm really not. Kind of the others probably laughing because I'm a slightly black-hearted one in the group. You'll never hear me talking about having a heart-centered business. This whole backbone going slightly mushy on no wine live on camera is how much I really value working with these ladies. So I just kind of, this is our second-class blab of 2015. So I just want to give them a kind of a public thank you because I've learned a lot this year, and also had a huge amount of fun because that's the other thing. Business really shouldn't be boring, it shouldn't be serious. I've tried to be really polite because I got my last blab pulled down off YouTube. I'm still arguing them over violating community standards, and I wonder if that's being a little bit too.
I have no idea what that is. That's another blab, I think.
So it's just that kind of, if you want to have a huge amount of fun and make loads more money, these two ladies are people you need on your team.
Great. That always sounds good, I think, to people, definitely. I think just to pick up where the ladies are talking about, I mean, obviously we've joined together to work on this mastermind for the coming year. We would hope that some of you would even just investigate into it at least, because it may be for you. We have called it the Winners Enclosure because really this is about winners, about motivated business owners coming together and working together with us co-leading, and I suppose really tapping into our skill sets in terms of, I suppose for myself, sales and marketing strategy, for Denise, with her CEO background. I mean, she has such a plethora of skill sets, from HR to the financial side of it, or indeed if Christina and I are having the fluffy talks around marketing, she can cut through the crap, as Christina says. So and equally for Christina, like she said, I mean, typically people might perceive us as competitors. However, we're in different sides of marketing, if you like, and I would actually really look up to Christina in terms of the amount of knowledge she has about digital marketing, about retargeting, about Facebook ads. You know, she's unusual in the extreme, in the sense of, you know, she has 3 e-commerce businesses, you know, that she actually owns them, she runs them, she operates them. And I think somebody that has that knowledge is far superior than many of the online marketers that I think are available and have very good knowledge as well. But I think you can't beat the real thing, you know, so it's fantastic to have somebody on the team that really, really has that background knowledge, and equally that has that background knowledge from 2001, because so many people are learning stuff on YouTube, and while YouTube is very good, you really got to get out there and you got to do the business. So I think that's super important. In terms of the mastermind, then I think accountability, you know, having people there to help you. I was talking to somebody yesterday that's really interested, and I said to her, one of the things that I need to do, we all need to do, but going forward, is to look at growth. And I think many people have got to a certain level in their businesses and are looking to grow their business significantly. And in terms of doing that, you need to surround yourselves with the relevant people that can help you to move forward, that aren't afraid to tell you, yes, move forward, or indeed to say, look, maybe hold tight right now. You've got to focus on X, Y, and Z, and then maybe to move forward with it. And this is a comprehensive program, you know, that really, really helps to push and motivate people like for a year. And, you know, you've got the accountability, you've got like some expert help, one-to-ones. You can see from the Winners Enclosure if you have a look at it. And I mean, we're happy to talk to people going forward on a one-to-one basis if you weren't sure if it's for you or anything like that. I think personally it's a wonderful opportunity. I think masterminds in general are. Some of you may be in them already and maybe could share some of your experiences. But really this is, I think, our kick-ass year, girls. 2016, whereby the 3 of us probably really were introverted in many ways and haven't pushed ourselves forward. So we're massively going to be doing that. And there's genuine experience that will be there to help you guys if you're interested going forward. So, you know, and I said, thank you, ladies. You know, you've helped me enormously in my business so far, and I've had a huge influence. So, you know, here's to 2016. I actually only have water in this, but but yeah, here's to 2016 and a wonderful year for us. I genuinely like this water. I mean, why would you put water in a wine glass? But anyway, I'm in Ireland. There's so much water, we even put it in wine glasses. But anyway, look, masterminds are fantastic, and I think going forward, there's so many courses you can do, and believe me, I am the queen of courses. But I think it's usually valuable to have people with experience and indeed with academic backgrounds as well that have done it and can help you truly. So, you know, we would be delighted, look, if anybody here, the talking water, somebody's saying, if people here are interested, just to touch base with us, have a look, come back to us, speak to us privately if you'd like, and have a look at least. So the talking water, yeah, I like that. Maybe I should do that going forward. That's a new thing for for our blab. But anyway, look, thank you so much for everybody for listening tonight. If you have any questions, please ask us. There's been some great people on here tonight, and really, really appreciate you joining us, because you are giving up your time to listen to us here this evening. I hope we have shared some fantastic and helpful points for you, and you can listen to the replay later on if you'd like, and that might help as well. So back to Denise maybe there, and she might like to wrap up because it's getting quite late, I'm sure, and people might be tired of listening to all this.
Yeah, it's getting quite late over here in the UK. So I'm not going to try and recap all of the different areas that we covered today when we were talking about marketing trends for 2016, but I'm just going to focus on one of them just a moment. So if Christina, you could, or Emma, you could just pop up the link for the blab that we're doing tomorrow. So we did talk a fair amount today about content marketing. And so what we're doing is a special blab tomorrow, which we're doing at 6 o'clock here, GMT over here in the UK. And I'm guessing that's lunchtime over on the East Coast.
1 p.m.
1 p.m. in New York, and it'll be 10 o'clock, I think, over on the West Coast, San Francisco, and so on. So we have got our blab that we're doing, which is really a behind the scenes look at how we at our content marketing strategy and how we have been working that. And I'm certainly going to be sharing some of the things that I really wish I had known 12 months ago. And some things where I was just like, this is so basic, where I could have really slapped my forehead for not knowing. And so we're going to be sharing some of the kind of key learnings and lessons that we have around building out our content marketing strategy, and hope that will be of value and interest to you. So that's 6 o'clock tomorrow evening, GMT, and we've got the link there up in the blab, up there in the chat.
I've just popped it up again in the chat box, and I'd say that as well as the sort of content strategy, I'm probably gonna leave the other two to talk about that, and I'm gonna talk about using tech to take a bit of the load. So how do you spend all this time and pump out all this content, and a couple of tools and one really, really, really awesome way of letting other people do all the hard work for you. I told you I'm fundamentally, although I seem to pull crazy working hours, at heart a lazy marketer. If you can get computers or other people to do the hard work for you, and do it. So that is tomorrow at 9 p.m. GMT, 1 p.m. EST, and hope to see some of you on it.
So I just really just want to wrap up here now and just say a big thank you to everybody for joining us. Thank you to you for interacting with us in the chat, for asking your questions and helping to keep the discussion lively. So hope that you've got really, really great value from it. And we are doing a weekly blab on a Monday evening, so that's a regular blab at 9 o'clock UK time. But tomorrow we're doing a special one-off blab, as we've mentioned, so we would love to see perhaps some of you there on that blab tomorrow, or maybe on one of our Monday evening blabs as well. So really, really big thank you to all of you for joining us, and I hope to catch up with you another time soon. Bye.
Bye. Thank you guys. Bye.